Emily, step back. You're just the name on the paperwork. Don't ever confuse who the real owner of this house is. My stepfather said it like he was reminding me of a house rule. Calm, clean, so neat it sounded like just common sense. But the sentence still managed to do one thing: strip me of the house that carried my name right in front of everyone. The entire living room fell silent. The smart lock screen on the wall lit up for a split second, then went dark. No familiar unlocking beep. Access had already been changed, quietly, neatly, the way someone takes back a right without saying a word. I understood why he chose tonight. This was family night with enough relatives, enough neighbors, enough people to turn an order into order. And there was a phone recording, a video they'd post later with the caption, "Our family is always close." Lines like that live on witnesses. They turn the person who reacts into the one who ruins the night, while the person giving the order looks like they're just keeping things proper. I'd gotten used to moving along that track. Sign to keep it smooth, clean to keep it neat, pay to get it done, then step back a little so everything could pass. But this time I didn't need to prove I deserved anything. I only wondered, when they're used to seeing me as the name on the paper, what will they do when that name stops? That was the moment Emily Carter realized. Some families don't need to snatch things from you. They just need the whole room to silently agree that you don't have the right. And if you've ever been the one whose name was used so others could live easier, how much longer would you stay quiet? And I'm Stella. Before I go on, where are you listening from and what time is it where you are right now? Leave me a comment and let me know. If this story touches you, hit like and subscribe, because Emily's counterstrike won't be an argument. It'll be a choice they never believed she'd dare to make, resetting the rules. My name is Emily Carter, 28, the age where you're old enough to take care of yourself, yet still treated like the placeholder name. I work an office job on the outskirts of Madison, steady, but nothing flashy. This house has my name on the paperwork, and that's exactly why they need that name. In the living room tonight, not a single word slipped out. I just held the silence for one extra beat, long enough for the camera to capture the moment of the good, reasonable daughter. Then I stepped back, just enough to satisfy my stepfather, and just enough for my eyes to catch what was sitting out on the counter near the kitchen. A thick brown folder with a paper clip. On top was a bank printout. The words, "Urgent Renewal," stamped boldly in the corner, beneath it the line, "Primary signer, Emily Carter," and an appointment I'd never heard anyone mention. My feet moved slowly toward the kitchen, pretending to get more ice. My hand touched the edge of the counter, slid lightly toward the folder. I didn't pull it out right away. I just lifted the flap a little, just enough to read the line at the top. Urgent Renewal. Below it, a shorter, colder sentence. Primary signer's signature required. The deadline was underlined in red like a cut. My heart jumped once, then forced itself back into place. Not from fear, but from being far too familiar with important things always appearing behind my back. The first day I signed flashed back fast, like an old video playing by mistake. I was 24 then. Mom put a stack of papers in front of me and whispered, "It's only temporary, so the house can close on time. You have good credit. We can switch it back later. It'll be easy." My stepfather stood beside her, patting my shoulder like he was granting me an honor. The pen slid across the page. The ink hadn't even dried before I felt lighter for helping the family. One signature, one temporary promise, and a habit began. Back in the present, I closed the folder. I lifted it like a cookbook and set it neatly beside my purse. "Emily, help your aunt open the sauce bottle," a voice called from the dining table. And right after that, another line, light as if it were obvious. She's used to handling the paperwork anyway. The sentence landed like a label, already stuck to my forehead. Sadly, it wasn't wrong, because the whole family had trained me to be the one who handled everything. Tax bills, bank letters, insurance emails, plumbing repair forms. Anything with words, deadlines, or complications got pushed my way like sliding a tray across a counter. I opened the cabinet, grabbed the bottle opener, handed it over. The smile stayed exactly where it belonged, like setting a plate down without making a sound. Then when everyone went back to their conversation, my hand slipped into my purse and touched the edge of the papers in the folder. For the first time in years, my finger stopped on a single line, reading each word slowly like a vow. Primary signer. A beat of silence washed through, not long, but long enough for a question sharp as a pin to lodge itself in my head. If this name stops, will they still call me family? The question didn't get an answer right there in the kitchen, between the smell of cinnamon and laughter. It just sat there like a taut thread in my chest, pulling everything sharper. The tray of glasses was carried into the living room, my steps slowing by instinct. Little habits suddenly stood out. The loudest voice rarely had to explain. The softest orders were always seen as reasonable, and anyone who reacted, even with a frown, instantly became the one who ruined the mood. My stepfather stood near the fireplace, one hand holding his phone, the other patting the neighbor on the shoulder like an old friend. His gaze swept the room like he was checking whether an item was still in place. Mom circled the table, adjusting chairs, straightening napkins, smiling while her eyes watched every corner. The whole house ran like a stage play. Everyone knew their role, except one role had its props swapped right on the stage. "Emily," Mom called, her voice light like she was asking a small favor. "Come out here for a minute." In this house, for a minute usually came with paperwork. I glanced at my stepfather. He gave a tiny nod, like flipping a switch. Then his voice rose just loud enough to reach the invisible camera of the phone recording. "Our daughter knows documents, just a few papers to sign, so next week runs smoothly." No one asked what papers. No one asked why sign right now. A few supportive laughs chimed in like spoons tapping glasses. I set the tray down. My fingers quickly wiped the condensation off the bottom of a glass so it wouldn't leave a mark on the wood. A small gesture, but like a break, pulling me back from the reaction rising in my throat. The more people there were, the clearer the rule. Push back and you're making a scene. Stay quiet and you're mature. My stepfather stepped closer, positioning himself in the camera's best angle. "You're just here to sign," he said, like a loving reminder. "Don't turn tonight into something ugly." The living room went quiet for a beat, then laughed again. That dry laugh, laughing so no one has to look straight at the truth. In my head, an invisible ledger opened. Not a ledger of money owed, but a ledger of rights owed. The times I'd been called home early because something needs a signature. The times I'd been pushed to hurry up while I was eating dinner. The times papers were shoved at me without letting me read, followed by sighs like my slowness was exhausting them. The folder in my purse suddenly felt heavier, even though it hadn't changed by a single gram. The words, "urgent renewal," flashed like a warning light, and one piece clicked into place. That signature wasn't just to help the family. It was the lock, the button that made everything run. I lifted my eyes and met the ones waiting for a nod. No arguing, no grabbing papers, just folding my breathing neatly in. "If it's paperwork," my voice came out steady, like talking about taxes, "I need to review it first, and I only sign where the full file is present." Mom kept smiling, her voice still soft, but her hand already reached out by habit, the way you reach for a TV remote. My stepfather held his smile for one more beat, then angled his body slightly to block the camera. "You're right. Reviewing is good," he said, like he was giving in. "Later, after the guests leave." "No." The word came out clean. "Now." "Emily, tonight." Mom stretched the last word, her eyes asking for a compromise. "I just need to see it," I replied, and walked straight to the counter near the kitchen, where the thing I'd already noticed earlier was sitting out, almost like it had been left there on purpose for the signer to spot. A beige folder with a red label on the corner. The print was small, but urgent renewal didn't need glasses to read. I pulled the flap open. The papers inside were thick and new, the smell of photocopy ink still strong, a copy of the loan contract, a renewal addendum, several acknowledgement pages with blank lines waiting for a signature. The name Emily Carter repeated across the top, steady as a heartbeat. The feeling was strange. On paper, I existed too clearly. In the living room, I'd just been spoken of like a shadow. My stepfather took a step back. He tried to keep his voice low. "You can sign tomorrow." In 72 hours, my eyes stopped on the deadline line. Not tomorrow. My phone buzzed in my pocket, not a family message. The screen lit up with the bank's familiar email address. Clean logo, short, cold subject. Renewal deadline, 72 hours. Verification required. I opened the email right there at the kitchen counter under the yellow light. The middle of the message didn't dance around it. Direct verification with the primary signer required. Without the signature, the file would be held. Disbursement and renewal paused until completion. Each sentence dropped like a metal latch. I flipped to the addendum page. A clause sat neatly at the bottom in small print, the kind people skim to make it to dinner. The primary signer's right to approve, pause, or request additional verification before any change takes effect. A memory flashed. Years ago, on a winter night, Mom set a mug of cocoa on the table, her voice sweet as brown sugar. Just sign temporarily. It's only to make the file look good, to keep things stable. Switching it back later is easy. Back then, I believed it, signed in one stroke, then went back to work the next day like nothing happened. If you've ever signed something people called temporary for family, and it dragged on for years, you understand that feeling. Drop a heart so I know you're listening with the same ache. I didn't pick up a pen. Instead, I opened scan mode on my phone. Each page was photographed, clean, clear, saved into its own folder. A second copy was sent to my personal email. No show, no asking anyone's permission. By the hallway entrance, a small catch-all box sat beside the shoe cabinet, where car keys, a few quarters, and grocery receipts usually went. I dropped the metal keyring for the garage and the mailbox into it with a light motion, a brief clink, a small sound, but enough to remind me. The old roll was set down. When I went back to the living room, my eyes landed right on my stepfather. If a signature is needed, I said slowly, it will be signed in the right place, with the right file, through the right process. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't email, it was a call. The screen showed a bank employee's name and extension. No one in the room heard it over the low background music and conversation, but my stepfather saw the way I glanced at the screen. He moved faster by one beat, blocking the kitchen counter with his shoulder. "Don't answer here," he said very softly, his lips barely moving. "Guests are still here." "This is my file," my reply was just as soft. Enough for the person beside me to hear, not enough to make a scene. My finger slid to accept the call as I stepped beside the fridge, turning my back to the living room so my voice wouldn't come out like a declaration. "Hi, Emily." The voice on the other end went straight to business. Exactly like a banker, polite, but not circling around it. "We just received a flag that the renewal file is on hold. There are a few points we need to verify, and we need your signature before the deadline." "I haven't signed yet," I said simply. "I want all communication from this point forward to follow the proper process. Verification of signer authority and renewal terms." A brief silence on the line, then the voice shifted into scheduling mode. "I understand. We can arrange a verification meeting within 24 hours. Please bring photo, ID, and related documents. I'll send the appointment now." The call ended, and the calendar invite popped up like a warning light. Another email came in. "Account on hold, pending verification." The word hold sat there coldly, but it made the noisy house suddenly feel like something had dropped. My stepfather didn't ask who called. He asked exactly what he feared. "What did you tell them?" His voice stayed low, but the calm veneer was starting to crack. "I told them we're doing it through the proper process." I looked at him, kept my breathing steady, didn't push it higher. "No rushing a signature." A relative walked by, saw the two of us near the kitchen counter, and gave an awkward laugh. "Oh, wow, paperwork again? Emily's used to handling that stuff." The line was tossed out like a joke. A few others laughed too, because it was easier than looking straight at the discomfort in the room. My stepfather took the opening to pull the mask back on. He rested a hand on the back of a chair, tilted his head toward the relatives. "That's right. She's always meticulous." Then he turned back to me, his voice dropping to the bottom. "Being too meticulous can hurt the whole family someday." "Don't play games," he continued, still quiet enough that the camera wouldn't catch it. "Sign tomorrow morning. If you don't, you know what happens to this house. Taxes, escrow, everything. Can your mother handle that?" Mom stood nearby, holding a plate of pastries, her eyes darting between me and him like someone trying to keep a table from tipping. "Emily, just help the family this once." Seeing Mom's hand tighten around the edge of the plate, a soft beat passed through my chest. But only one beat. Enough to know I was still human, not enough to step back into the old role. "Everything has to follow the proper process," I said slowly and clearly, like reading a new rule that had just been written. "Some battles don't need shouting, they just need stopping." And the question hung in the living room. When the one who always signs suddenly stops signing, who's really carrying the load? The bank email showed one more line. The verification meeting had been scheduled. Tomorrow morning. The branch address in Middleton, outside Madison. Note, please bring photo identification. Leaving the living room, getting into my car in the skin-cutting cold of suburban Madison, my phone was still lit up like something that refused to let things rest. The moment I started the engine, there were 2 more missed calls. A text from Mom. "Where are you going? Come back and talk first." Another from my stepfather, short like an order. "Don't play games. Sign tomorrow morning." The drive back to my rental apartment was only 15 minutes, but the hard buzzing in the cup holder made it feel longer. Sometimes the phone rang nonstop, like someone kept redialing just to prove they still had the right to touch my life. I didn't answer. I just opened my notes app and named a line. Tonight. Then I wrote down exactly what happened. Hour, minute, who said what, where. The more I wrote, the more my heartbeat settled back into place. When I got home, before I could even take off my coat, my voicemail was full. My stepfather's voice changed color with each message. First came the scolding, "You made us look bad." Then the bargaining, "Just sign once and everyone will be fine." Then the blame, "Your mother has a heart condition. Do you want her collapsing over money?" Mom's texts kept coming, longer this time. "Don't be stubborn, he's thinking about the family. If you do this, everyone suffers." Under it was a crying face emoji, like tears could replace the truth on the paperwork. My fingers paused over the keyboard for one beat. I didn't type a paragraph. I didn't explain. I replied with one sentence only, like laying the first brick of a boundary. Everything will be discussed at the meeting with the bank. The 3 dots, typing, appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then vanished. Finally, a call came through. Mom. It rang. I didn't answer. It rang a second time. Still, no. The third time, my stepfather's name showed up. I answered, put it on speaker, my hand still holding a pen. "Who do you think you are?" He went straight in, no greeting. "This house is ours, you're just..." The sentence slipped out fast, like an accidental truth. And in that exact moment, he froze. He must have heard what he'd just said, how he'd admitted the thing they always avoided saying in front of outsiders. A beat of silence. Have you ever heard one slip that snapped you fully awake? Write one short line in the comments. I mean, this house was built by the family, he corrected himself, trying to pull the moral mask back on. You're holding the title for us, understand? Don't mess this up. My pen underlined the exact line he'd just said. Time, content, speaker, evidence cleaner than any emotion. You just said this house is yours. My voice stayed even. That's exactly why it needs the proper process. He lowered his voice, shifting into a threat. Tomorrow morning, if you go to the bank and pull something, you'll deal with the consequences. The call ended with a sharp click, like someone slamming a door. Right after that came a new email from the bank. Not from the person who called earlier, but a different address, with a more formal subject. Verification attendance request. The message was short. A compliance representative and in-house counsel would attend to verify the signer's authority. The next morning, the parking lot at the bank branch in Middleton was still slick with ice. Inside smelled like coffee and fresh printer paper, the familiar smell of process. I handed over my photo ID. The receptionist looked up, nodded, and led me to a glass meeting room at the end of the hall. A thick file was already on the table, clipped with a yellow paperclip. A man introduced himself as compliance. Beside him, a woman opened her laptop, voice crisp. They needed direct verification because I was the primary signer and the authorized signer. The door opened. My stepfather walked in first, like it was his meeting. Mom followed, lips pressed tight. The moment he sat down, he framed it, a thin but firm smile. She's been a little tense lately. Probably work. Mom added softly, "It's just a misunderstanding. There's a little friction at home, but the family is fine." I didn't argue. I just pulled out my chair, set my phone face down, and opened the packet I brought. Emails, timeline, signature requirements, deadline. I pushed the right page to the center of the table. The legal woman scanned it, her finger stopping on the line, required. Borrower/authorized signer confirmation. My stepfather leaned in, confident like he was listing achievements. "I'm the one paying. I handle everything. She's just holding the title. It's faster to work with me." "Sir, you are not an authorized signer on this file. Is there someone you think needs to hear a sentence like that? Send it to them if you want." My stepfather gave an awkward laugh, about to speak again, but the compliance man had already turned to another page and asked directly, "Previous contacts, who confirmed them? Was there authorization from Ms. Emily?" One short answer, sharp enough to cut house rules away from paper rules. "No." My stepfather switched tone immediately, softer but edged. "See, she's stubborn, she wants to blow this up." No need to spar. I looked straight at the bank. "From now on, please move all communication to writing and any change to the signer, the renewal, the file structure. I want a copy, with the legal advisor information included." The woman typed a few lines. The compliance man gave a small nod. Noted. When the meeting ended, they were politely cold. The file would remain temporarily locked until the correct party was verified. As I stood up, my stepfather tried to keep his face, but his hand gripped the edge of the chair. First time I'd seen the calm crack. Walking out of the glass room, my phone buzzed. Not a family call. A new email from the bank, the follow-up verification schedule, and a list of documents to bring. The email was brief, like a new lock clicking into place. The file was paused, and any sign or change required direct verification. Before I could even set my phone down, Mom called. Her voice was strangely soft. Emily, can you come home so we can talk? Just talk. No more orders, just the words, can you, followed by a long exhale. My stepfather didn't wait until night. A text popped up right after. Don't overdo it. This is family business. We met in the parking lot of the grocery store near the house, under neon lights reflecting off dirty snow where anyone walking by could see. It was still the way they chose, witnesses, only now they weren't standing in the position of giving orders anymore. Just sign so the bank reopens it. Once it's done, everyone goes back to their own life. A sheet of paper was handed over, a rushed proposal, signature line blank, with a line stating Emily agrees to continue supporting the renewal. Mom stood beside him, eyes fixed on her own hands, like she was afraid looking up would ruin her peaceful role. Conditions, my answer dropped clean. 1. Full transparency on every document tied to the house and the loan. Send complete copies. 2. Stop using my name as a tool. Anything that needs my signature must be requested in writing ahead of time. 3. Communication boundaries. No surprise access cutoffs, no rapid-fire calling, no dragging outsiders in to apply pressure. My stepfather let out a snort, trying to stay calm, but his ears went red. Who do you think you are to set rules? The one on the title. He finally threw out the sentence he'd wanted to say out loud his whole life. You're destroying this family. No need to debate. I stop cooperating, and nobody gets hurt if everything's clean. Silence dropped between the sounds of engines idling. And the most satisfying part wasn't my reply. It was pulling a thin plastic sleeve from my bag. Copies of the borrower page, the clause about the authorized signer, and the 72-hour deadline email. I laid it on the car hood, like putting a truth on the table. Some families only love silence when it serves them. When silence changes hands, they call it betrayal. Night fell, and another email from the bank came in. This time it was a notice. The family had submitted a request to change the signer structure, add a co-borrower to continue the renewal, and reduce my role in the file. Legal, proper process. And enough to understand. They were looking for a way around it, wanting me gone from the paperwork in the cleanest way possible. That email felt like an advance ticket. They were trying to move forward without needing my signature anymore. The next morning, a call from the bank came earlier than my alarm. A professional female voice, very Midwestern and by the book, confirmed they'd received the request to change the signer structure and asked bluntly, Emily, do you agree to have your name removed from the authorized signer role? The question dried my throat for one beat. If I nodded, they'd get exactly what I'd just been stripped of. Control. If I held on, the tug-of-war would drag on, and the house would stay a noose tied to family. The verification appointment was locked in that same day. Bring photo ID, copies of the file, and something most people wouldn't think of, the keys to a rental car, because I didn't want to walk out of that meeting and have to return to the old house like walking back into a cell. After the work session, everything was returned to what the paperwork actually was. The rights of the person on the title weren't a sentence in a living room, but a choice in front of bank employees. The process was clear enough to feel cold. I made the final decision in the cleanest way. I did not agree to any change meant only to dodge my signature. I demanded every step reflect the real responsibilities and benefits of the person on the title. If they wanted a new structure, they would carry it under their own names, not lean on mine anymore. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the parking lot. Mom. Her voice was low, like she was afraid someone could hear. Are you really taking it this far? That house? It's our family's memories. That house is my paperwork. The answer was short, enough to block the emotion trying to pull me back into the old role. She went quiet for a few seconds, then switched to the familiar weapon. I raised you. I endured so much. You can't walk away over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. The word sounded soft, like a cloth thrown over a cut. I'll send everything in writing, I said, and hung up. My finger shook slightly as I pressed it, but my hand still held the phone steady. Late afternoon, I went back to the house one last time, and this time I didn't ask anyone for permission. The smart lock still denied access. A note was taped to the inside door in my stepfather's handwriting. "Don't make this worse." I asked the older neighbor next door, Linda, the one who always brought cookies around Christmas, to open it from the inside so I could get my personal things. She didn't ask much, just looked straight at me once and nodded. "Take what you need, honey." My stuff was heartbreaking in how little it was. A few office outfits, my laptop, a graduation photo frame, and the thin file with my name on it. Before I left, my hand rested on the doorknob for exactly one beat, not to mourn, but to shut down a habit. Stepping out onto the back porch, the Wisconsin cold cut sharp. I didn't cry. I just let out a long breath, like I was finally returning something I'd carried for too long. The living room lights glowed behind me, laughter still floated out, like nothing had changed. And that was what made the price of justice show itself the clearest. They could keep being normal, while I had to learn a different kind of normal alone. Justice doesn't give back the years I was used as the convenient name on the title. It only gives back choice, and that choice can be lonely. Standing on the steps, looking down at dirty snow marked with footprints, a thought rose in my head, light but sharp. From now on, who do I want to become after I pull my hand out of their life? The new room wasn't big. A small wooden table pressed against the window, a chair just high enough to sit with my back straight, and a ceramic mug I grabbed quickly at Target the afternoon before. Hot tea sent up a thin stream of steam, a familiar smell that didn't trigger any memories I needed to avoid. Morning in suburban Madison was so quiet I could hear distant cars and wind slipping through the window frame. No one giving orders, no one waiting for a signature, just steady breathing for the first time not meant to keep the peace for someone else. A boundary, it turns out, isn't punishment. It's the minimum condition for a relationship to stand upright. When boundaries get erased, family warps, turning into a habit of using someone, not loving them. What disappears is the fake warmth that's been called family for years. Full dinner tables with no respect, hollow compliments paid back with obligation, and the illusion that if you just try a little harder, you'll finally be loved the right way. There were still days my heart dipped. Looking at old photos, part of me wondered if everything could have been softer. But the answer no longer pulled me back into the old role. No more holding the title for someone else, no more cleaning up the fallout, no more signing so others could feel safe. This new peace had its price, losing a few people, losing a roof that was once called ours, losing the belief that sacrifice is always noticed. In exchange came choice, and the feeling of owning my own life, even if it was modest. If I have to name what happened, it wasn't about defeating anyone. There wasn't a loser crushed to the ground. There was just an old habit brought to an end. I didn't beat them. I beat my habit of handing over my power. And here, I want to be clear. This story is fictional, inspired by everyday life. The video is created with the support of AI and edited by a human to encourage reflection, not to encourage or replace any legal or personal advice. What matters most is the value. Read the rules you're living under, recognize the complicity of silence, and remember that everyone has the right to stop. If there's one gift I want to leave you after this story closes, it's this. Choose one small boundary to start with, one clear sentence, one time you don't sign, one step far enough back to hear your own voice again. And what about you? Where are you listening to this story from? And what time is it where you are right now? Leave me a comment and let me know. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you a moment to think, hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories. Every view, every comment you leave is a way of choosing to listen, and sometimes that already means something.